Jake Matthews knew the mission was suicide before his squad even launched from the carrier. But orders were orders, and someone had to scout the hostile sector where 3 Earth vessels had vanished without sending distress signals. His fighter took heavy fire within minutes of entering the asteroid field, and the last thing he remembered before losing consciousness was his ship spinning toward a purple and green planet that was not on any star charts. When Jake woke up, his hands were bound with something that felt like living metal, and he was kneeling in a vast stone hall surrounded by beings that looked almost human, except for their violet skin and eyes that glowed like molten gold. The tallest one stepped forward, and Jake realized, with a start, that she was female, though she carried herself like every drill sergeant he had ever feared back in basic training. Her name was Zara, and she spoke English with an accent that sounded like wind through canyon walls, asking him why humans dared to enter their sacred territory. Jake told the truth that he was just following orders and had no idea this planet belonged to anyone, which made Zara laugh, though it was not a kind sound. She ordered her warriors to take him to the detention cell, saying they would decide his fate after they determined whether more humans were coming. The cell was surprisingly comfortable with soft bedding and regular meals, but Jake was interrogated daily by different warriors who seemed disappointed that he did not break down or beg for mercy. What they did not understand was that Jake had grown up with 4 older sisters who had tormented him far more creatively than any alien warrior ever could. On the 8th day, Zara herself came to his cell and asked why he smiled during interrogations, and Jake told her about his sister Kelly, who once convinced him that eating grass would give him superpowers. Zara stared at him for a long moment before her lips twitched, and she made that wind chime laugh again, but this time it sounded genuine. After that, Zara visited him every evening, asking questions about Earth and human customs, while Jake learned about her people, the Kaleth, who valued strength and honor above all else. Zara admitted that she had never met anyone quite like Jake, who faced possible execution with jokes and stories instead of anger or fear. Jake noticed that Zara always came alone, and how she sometimes touched the walls of his cell as if drawing strength from the stone itself. One night he asked if she was lonely, and Zara's golden eyes dimmed before she said that commanders do not have the luxury of companionship. Kira, who served as Zara's second-in-command, started appearing during the evening visit, standing silently in the doorway with disapproval radiating from every line of her body. She finally spoke directly to Jake, warning him that whatever game he was playing with Zara's emotions would end badly for everyone involved. Jake was not playing any game, though. He had simply never met anyone like Zara, who could lead armies and break enemy lines, but who also listened with complete attention when he described snowfall on Earth. 3 weeks into his captivity, alarms screamed through the compound, and Jake heard weapons fire echoing through the stone corridors. The Scorvath had come, and Zara's people were outnumbered by the rival faction that wanted to claim Kaleth territory for themselves. Jake's cell door hung open, abandoned in the chaos, and he could have escaped into the confusion, but instead he grabbed a fallen warrior's weapon and ran toward the sounds of battle. He found Zara fighting back-to-back with Kira, surrounded by Scorvath soldiers whose red armor gleamed like blood. Under the emergency lights, Jake shot 3 enemies before Zara even saw him, yelling at her to duck, while he provided covering fire from an elevated position. The battle lasted hours, and when it finally ended, Jake stood among the Kaleth warriors, covered in dust and minor wounds, while they stared at him in amazement. Kira approached him slowly and placed her fist over her heart, in what Jake had learned was their highest salute, saying that he fought with honor unexpected in a human prisoner. Zara said nothing, but her golden eyes held an expression that made Jake's heart beat faster. The Council of Elders summoned Jake the next day, and he stood before them while they debated his fate in their own language. Zara argued passionately, though Jake could not understand her words. He recognized the desperation in her voice. Finally, the eldest council member spoke in English, declaring that Jake had earned the right to live, but he must leave their planet immediately, as humans were still forbidden. Zara's face remained carefully neutral, but Jake saw her hands clench into fists. That night, Zara came to his quarters where he was packing the few belongings they had given him. She stood in the doorway, and Jake waited, knowing that whatever she needed to say was difficult for her. Zara admitted that her people had laws for a reason and that mixing with outsiders had destroyed other Kaleth clans in the past. But then she also said that Jake had shown her something she thought was lost to her people, forever, which was the ability to see strength in gentleness and courage in compassion. Jake stepped closer and asked what she wanted, not what her people expected, or what the laws demanded. Zara met his eyes, and for the first time since they met, she looked uncertain before she whispered that she wanted him to stay. Jake said that he would stay if she asked him to, even knowing it would make her life harder. Zara touched his face with her hand and said that perhaps it was time for the Kaleth to learn that strength comes in many forms. Kira found them standing together in the dawn light, and though she shook her head, she also smiled, saying that Zara had always been too stubborn for her own good. The council was not pleased when Zara announced that Jake would remain as her personal advisor, but none dared challenge their strongest commander. Jake knew that their path would not be easy, and that many Kaleth still viewed him with suspicion. But when Zara took his hand in front of her entire clan, claiming him as her equal, he realized that some bonds transcend species and tradition. Together they would face whatever came next, and maybe along the way teach two different peoples that love recognizes no boundaries.